This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
I believe Common knew very well who was sitting in today at 3 o'clock, but chose not to mention that it was me so as not to turn off 36.2% of the audience. So at least to give me a shot. It's 3:01. It's a Friday afternoon. Bump officially on spring break, I believe. I think it's spring break time, at least in Minnetonka. So he's got a few days off. I'll be in here for a while, and very happy to do so. My name is Dave Sinykin. Perhaps you've heard of me, a.k.a. the Head Cheese. There's little to worry about. It's late March, early April. It's not a whole lot of Packer news, too. Although they just announced the signing of a linebacker, I could deep dive into Christian Welch's return. But I don't plan to do that over these next, what I'm told, are 3.5 hours. Brett Blakemore by my side. I was excited. I saw the Abbott email with the calendar, with the schedule.
Yeah.
And according to the way I read it, it was a 3-hour tour. We were out at 6. But you tell me, no, that's not how it works. We're in for the whole bit today.
That's the way I'm reading all the tea leaves. So we're in for the whole tour today.
And because I didn't plan for 6 to 6:30, that might become Packer Preview, because that's easy. So I can't.
That's the wheelhouse.
I can't promise we won't dive into some green and gold at 6. I'll do my best not to.
Maybe top 5 at 5. I throw in a little.
You sure could if you find something.
Well, they just signed a linebacker.
That's true.
That's breaking news.
It's going to change everything you had planned. But yeah, let's do a top 5. We didn't do much of a pre-show meeting, but let's do that for sure.
Sure.
I'm excited to be here. I'll be here today, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. I'm thinking right now, although I haven't talked to Trent yet, Wednesday might become a de facto midweek in the zone at 3 o'clock. We'll chat about that tomorrow, but that might be in the cards. I've covered myself today. We are chock full of guests this afternoon, which will make our job so much easier, and I'm really excited to talk to all of them. Let's lay it out. Do we have a sponsor for the show lineup on Bumper Show? I don't recall. By the way, do you pay attention to Common when he's in here? Does he use his headphones? Do you know?
He usually does the one ear.
Because he has we have a little external speaker that sits on the desk, and that thing was cranked up. So I just wonder, because I hate having a speaker in the room. I just want to hear through my headphones. Yeah. I wonder maybe, because Trent, as you know, is not a big fan of wearing headphones.
Understatement of the year.
I think it's not a good look for him. He's afraid he's going to get captured, I think, via photography, and he doesn't like the headphones. I don't know. He doesn't wear them. I can't imagine not wearing them, and I wonder if Common doesn't wear them. But I was surprised to hear the speaker loud and clear. I got rid of that, so all is golden. Here's the, do we know, is there a sponsor for the show line? I feel like it's the Borton Volvo show line. Maybe that's an old thing. I just gave Borton a little love. I like Volvos. They'll give Borton a little love. At one time sponsor, if not current, maybe they should be. Here's the deal, sponsor or not. 3:35, friend of the program when I'm hosting during Wolves season, for my money, one of the great chroniclers of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Britt Robson, will join at 3:35. Wolves back in action finally tonight. Feels like they haven't played in weeks. They've played once since last Friday. Catching up. They had a lot of games in a short number of days. They had a nice break. I think we all can agree they needed it. They get one of their favorite lapdogs, the Phoenix Suns, at Target Center tonight. We'll catch up with Britt on the state of the Wolves. T-minus, 9, 10 games left before the playoffs or play-in, depending on where the Wolves figure out in the standings when things end up. Britt Robson joins at 3:35. Then Emergency Mick at 4. Late add to the mix, Pat Nicoletti on the end of the Gophers hockey season last night, a little too early. Some controversy at the end, at least according to Coach Bob Motzko and many of those that watched. We'll get Mick's take on the end of the Gophers hockey season, perhaps some Wild talk. I could take a quick bathroom break. You guys can chat some Wild. We'll join Mick at 4. 4:35 or so, Marcus Fuller, StarTribune.com, covers the Golden Gophers. I love having Marcus on when I'm filling in. His thoughts on the Nico hiring and also his thoughts on the Sweet 16. We're halfway through. More on that in a moment. But Marcus Fuller joins to talk some college hoop at 4:35. And then the usual Friday 5:30 bit, Lavelle E. Neal III will join at 5:30, 5:35 or so. We'll talk some Twins, perhaps some NFC North chatter with his Bears, some Sweet 16, whatever we got on tap. Maybe we'll keep him a little longer now that we're going till 6:30. But those four guys, kind enough to join on this beautiful, mild, dare I say, summer-like final Friday in March. You'll note if you look at your phone at the forecast, there's snow in the forecast for Sunday. So, keep the clubs warm, keep the clubs cool. You might get out today. Sunday might be a bit iffy. One of my favorite aspects, by the way, of sitting in for Dan is enjoying the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line because it just makes my day when I get texts like, "This ruined my day. When is Dan back?" I think Dan's back.
I think he's off all week next week.
He is off all next week because JG will be back Thursday.
Yep.
Broadcasting from the Final Four, which is that in Indy? That would be funny if JG had to go back to Indy.
That'd be great.
Much as he loves that town. I don't know why I feel it's in Indy. I feel like I should know this.
San Antonio.
San Antonio Davy, of course. They've been saying that throughout the week. I should have remembered that. So JG will handle this show Thursday and Friday. Until then, you're stuck mostly with me. I think we'll have somebody filling in on Tuesday. Not sure who that is at the moment, but we'll try to make it worth your while. It's very difficult to, rise to the standards of Hall of Fame broadcaster Dan Barreiro, but we do our best. And it's a time of year where there's so much happening, so much going on that I think we'll muddle through. As you know, the Twins lost their opener yesterday, 5-3 to the St. Louis Cardinals, a game that started about 90 minutes late due to the rain delay. How do we know, what percentage of this market was able to watch this game? I know my sister-in-law was bitter. She's a cable, I think Comcast cable subscriber. She was not able to get it. So I don't know how many of you got to watch the Twins. I'm a DirecTV guy. It was available for me, but not a great start for Pablo Lopez for your Twins as they fall 5-3. They're back in action tomorrow for a couple more games in St. Louis. We'll talk to Lavelle about the whole TV situation, how he understands it. Feels like it came into more focus in the hours before the game yesterday. I mean, it's hard to believe it took till opening day for the organization to be able to tell their customers where to find their game that day. When we've been waiting, 5 months for baseball to return? So we had that. Your Wild were winners last night, 4-2.
Big winners.
Big winners. That was, but what impressed you most, or what has you giddiest about the win last night?
I would say it was legit. There was they lost 2 before that. Then before that, they had like a 3-game winning streak. But those are kind of against cupcake teams. Your Seattle's. I wasn't convinced, so that's why I think I ripped them to shreds yesterday. Like they had no chance.
Oh.
And I didn't give them a lot of credit for those wins. This is different. That was a good team that came into the X and they played really well, scored a lot of goals. So no, that I will give flowers. I love to give flowers to this team. They're my favorite team in sports. I've been burned so many times that sometimes I get very cynical about them.
Yes. That
was a legit win last night. That was a good step in the right direction.
And speaking of flowers, the flower was not in goal last night, and that got Ovechkin and company a bit bitter, wasn't it? They wanted to say their goodbyes by throwing a few pucks past him one last time.
Yeah, well, if he wanted to get those 6 goals. But yeah, I don't think he got any goals last night to get to closer to Gretzky. But yeah, the post game, I don't know if you saw the post game where Ovechkin stopped everyone from leaving to shake Fleury's hand one last time. I mean, that's just what it's all about. That
makes you feel warm all over, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. I don't know how it couldn't. Yeah. If you've got a heart, it should.
Does it get old at some point? Every single time they're saying goodbye to a team, that they've got to all line up and shake hands with the dude?
That's sports these days.
Is that what it is?
If you're doing the farewell tour, which I think he said, I don't know if he said officially like this is it, but everyone's acting as if it is it.
We've all read between the lines. Correct?
Yeah, and that to me, if I were him, I'd rather go out on top where you still can play and are pretty good.
Yeah.
Compared to really riding it out and now you're a shell of yourself.
And everybody's saying, man, if he had just done it a year before.
Yep.
So that was the good when it comes to the hockey. Not so good. The Gophers hockey season ends with a 5-4 loss to UMass in Fargo. Overtime. That ousts them from the NCAA tournament. Had a 3-1 lead heading into the third period. Game got tied up. And then the winning goal looked like it fouled what should have been an obvious tripping penalty. Even I, not the greatest hockey mind ever to walk the earth, was stunned that would not be. I understand the whistle gets tighter in overtime, but I'm sure you've seen it, Brett.
Yeah, I have.
You have to make that call, correct?
Well, that's the thing in hockey, that one of the things that I love so much is that the penalties are black and white, right? You trip a guy, you slash a guy, you hook those are all, you do it or you don't. It's not, in football, a holding. What is a holding? What is a catch? No one really knows.
Right.
But because some officials see it differently, to me, that was the Gophers absolutely have a right to complain. I think they got robbed. That, to me, was clear as day a tripping call.
Yeah.
But even in overtime, because that's the thing, right? It's got to be egregious for us to call it in overtime. That was egregious.
Well, and we say that in every sport, right? Like football, if it's not an obvious pass interference, you can't call it in overtime. Well, yes,
let
you
the
can.
players play. Yeah.
Let's just call it the same throughout the game. And in a situation like that, just a really disappointing way for a Gopher season to end. And maybe the Jimmy Snuggerud era ends. We'll find that out. I read that he could actually be on the ice for the Blues tomorrow, right?
Could be. Yeah.
That's
Faber did the same thing.
But they've won like 8 in a row. So, what's their motivation? Because if I understand it, if he plays these last 8 games, that uses up 1 year of his rookie deal. Does it not behoove the Blues, if things are going well, to just say, look, we love you, we want you, please come. We'll start it up next season.
Yeah, that's for them to decide. It depends on how much, you need to help, but how much you want to see him as well, because you can just toss him in. You don't need to get him back up to fitness. He's just been playing. You can just throw him out there and see what happens. Wild did the same thing with, they burned a year with Kaprizov, I believe. They burned a year with Brock Faber, I want to say. And I know they're going to burn a year with Zeev Buium whenever Denver gets eliminated, if they haven't already. I didn't see their score or when they play. But when he does get eliminated, the Wild are going to burn a year. Whether he plays or not is another thing. But I know for a fact, at least I'm pretty sure Russo said on the air, they're going to burn a year for Zeev.
Those that were at the game in Fargo say it looked like Snuggerud was kind of saying his goodbye, stayed on the ice a bit longer, soaking it in, understanding that he was turning a page, and nobody knows for sure. And I imagine we'll have clarity here pretty quickly. But it just amazes me how fast things can turn. Like, if that kid's actually playing in the Blues uniform tomorrow, it's kind of like, some of these college coaches that are gone. Nico, the new Gophers coach, has the heartbreaking loss, and 24 hours later, he's the Gophers coach. It's just amazing how quickly that all happens. So more puck talk with Mick at the top of the hour. We'll pause, just getting started here. We'll pause here. I want to weigh in on the Sweet 16 that got underway last night, continues tonight. Crazy NBA finish last night. Unlike anything I've ever seen. 11 points in 12 seconds with, 1, 2, 3 lead changes. I still can't get over it. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. And Wolves preview. We'll do all of that when we come back, leading into Britt Robson, 3:35 for Wolves Conversation, the first of 4, count them, 4 guests on the Bumper to Bumper program on this Friday afternoon. Sinykin in for Bump, Blakemore by my side, just getting rolling on the Fan.
Wolves.
The St. Paul Saints are back. It's time to feel the excitement of a new season. Join them this weekend to kick off a season of thrilling games, unforgettable moments, and the best fan experience in town at CHS Field. Don't miss out on the action. Grab your tickets now and be a part of the Saints' journey to victory. Get your tickets today, saintsbaseball.com.
What's it all about?
Back with you on a Friday afternoon. Dave Sinykin in for Dan on this Friday afternoon. Brett Blakemore by my side with you for another 3 hours and change. with a cavalcade of guests throughout the afternoon, beginning next segment with Britt Robson to talk all things Timberwolves. I woke up middle of the night, as I'm wont to do at my age, and unlike most people who probably just take care of their business and just go back to bed, I like to just I look at my phone, I see what time it is, and sometimes I'll just open up X and just see what pops up. And what popped up for me was insane finish between Lakers and Bulls, and what a call by Stacey King on the call. Well, I can't let that go. Like, I can't just put my phone down and say, all right, I'm up in a few hours, I'll check it out. Well, I opened it, I watched it, and then my mind's like racing, like, I can't believe I just saw that. So let me just lay it out for you real quickly. Lakers Bulls. Now, this is a night after the Lakers beat the Pacers on a tip-in by LeBron James with like a tenth of a second to go to win the game. Now they're in Chicago, and they have a more dramatic finish, but this one doesn't go their way. They're up 5 points on the Bulls with 12 seconds to go. Bulls hit a 3, cut it to 2. Inbounding, Lakers, LeBron tries a little bounce pass, like 5 feet in the corner to Austin Reeves. Very lazy bounce pass. It's stolen by Josh Giddey. He quickly throws it out to Colby White, who chucks up a 3 and hits it. 6 points in 2 seconds. And now the Bulls are ahead of the Lakers by 1 point with 6 and change to go. They inbounded at half court. They run a great play. I mean, terrible defense by the Bulls. They inbounded to Austin Reeves, who basically goes unimpeded in for a layup to put the Lakers back up 1 with 3 seconds to go. Bulls have no timeouts, so they can't, stop the clock, design a play, inbound at half court, and see what they can do. Nope, they got 3 seconds. You're inbounding under the basket. Here we go. Giddey inbounds it to somebody. Somebody passes it back to Giddey, who just takes it up the court and just throws one up from beyond half court, and you could probably guess what happened. It went in. It went in from half court. Bulls beat the Lakers by 2. And Stacey King, this is an old reference that you will not get, but Stacey King, the former Bulls center who does television for them, cracks out the, Elizabeth, it's the big one, I'm coming home, which, of course, as PA and all of us old people know, is a Sanford and Sons reference where Fred Sanford would always pretend or act like he's having a heart attack, and Stacey King rolled it out. If you love the NBA, you have to go find the final 12 seconds and watch it, because the Lakers go from one night of a miraculous finish to the next night of an unbelievable collapse, which may have postseason implications. It's very tightly contested between 2 through 6 in the West. And there was a big surprise this afternoon. The Memphis Grizzlies fired their head coach, Taylor Jenkins. They're 44-29. He's now the winningest coach in Grizzlies history. He gets let go with 9 games left. And you immediately say, well, what happened? Like, what did he do off the court? Like, did some problem, legal problem? What could it be? And an hour or two later, it's reported that the ownership believes he lost the locker room. They've lost 4 out of 5, but Ja Morant hasn't been playing. They've dropped, I think, into 5th in the West. They were at one point 2nd. But he's been a great coach for them and taken them to heights they've never seen before, dealing with a team that's been hit by a ton of injuries. Just very surprising in the final 2 weeks of a season without something maybe legally, that he's dealing with, that they made this change. So that was a bit of a shocker that news broke early this afternoon. Other basketball-related news that broke. Real quick before you go there. Yeah. Do you want to hear the call? Is this the radio or the TV? Do we know? This is the Stacey King. Okay, yeah. Call. Yeah, let's play it.
Bulls are out of timeouts. 2 seconds left. Giddey for the win. Go! My God! I cannot believe this. Elizabeth, I'm coming, baby. On and on. Improbable. Unbelievable. Impossible. Magic Giddey. Good day, mate. Good day, somewhere in Australia, Sydney, or Melbourne. Paul Hogan and somebody at Crocodile Dundee.
It's as good as it gets. Josh Giddey, of course, Australian, so Stacey got that part in. Remarkable. this is a fun time of year because March Madness gives you those kind of moments. Maybe not so much this year, although we got one last night. If you were able to stay up late enough, get to that in 1 second. I also wanted to mention officially Paige Bueckers announced she's turning pro today. Not a surprise, though she did have a year left of eligibility. She is the likely number one pick in the WNBA draft, Hopkins' own. Has had a remarkable career. I thought it was really poignant when they won their game over the weekend to advance to the Sweet 16 for like the 800th straight year at UConn. Gino Auriemma was really emotional after Paige got up from the press conference. Just kind of looked at her and he actually got emotional just thinking, I'm not going to have her around anymore. And we know it's been a career full of ups and downs with the injuries, but she will be the number one pick. And there were reports back in December that she would rather not go to Dallas. The Stars have the number one pick. The LA Sparks have the number two pick. That's where she'd like to go. Can't really blame her. But that'll be a story to follow between now and the WNBA draft. I assume she'll go where she's drafted unless Dallas doesn't want a problem and decides to. I mean, Dallas and LA have made trades before in basketball. Most recently, just a couple months ago. So we're not going to put it past the Dallas ownership group, which also owns the Mavs, new owners. Mark Cuban passed the torch, and Doncic subsequently got traded. Would it shock anyone if they did it again and now traded the number one pick to L.A. again to allow Paige Bueckers to play there? We'll see. But for a lot of us that have followed Paige's career, she's next in action Monday against Oklahoma in the Sweet 16. On that very day, Monday, your Golden Gopher women will be playing the semifinals of something called the WBIT. And, of course, JG, the voice of the Lady Gophers, will be on the call. Maybe we'll ask, or we'll play a bit of that game while we're on the air on Monday. But the Gophers still playing basketball, and they'll be playing earlier in the day before the Sweet 16 games start up for the NCAA tournament with the women. All right, back to the Sweet 16. I had a long day yesterday. I was tired, and then my wife wanted to go get margaritas at about 5 in Chaska, where she works, which I knew was a problem because I didn't sleep well the night before. And I want to be up till 11:30 or so to watch Sweet 16. I knew I was in trouble.
Are you involved with these margaritas, or she's just?
Oh, we're having.
Oh, okay, you're also going.
Yes, we are. Okay. We are all going to imbibe with a couple friends, and so a couple margaritas later, I knew I was in trouble. And we get home at 7:30. She is snoring by 7:45. She's out. So I've already got that in my brain. Great, that's going to put me to sleep myself, knowing that the person next to me is sleeping. I fought it as long as I could, but 10:15, I was out, but only for about. A half hour maybe. I missed the end. I felt like I missed the end of the first game. I don't know. Whatever it was, I woke up in plenty of time to watch the last 10 minutes or so of the two late games, which were Duke, Arizona, and Arkansas, Texas Tech. And the way both those games were going, it kind of looked like the first two games. Not very competitive. Florida won easily. Alabama made 25 threes. I mean, they shot 50% from deep. They ran Maryland off the court. Maryland couldn't get a rebound. So those games were not competitive. And it looked like the late games were also going to be kind of ho-hummers. But both the teams battled back. In Arizona's case, I don't think they ever got closer than 5. But it got a little dicey. It was 7-8, in the final minute or two before Cooper Flagg remembered who Cooper Flagg was. He's a stud and had a historic game for Duke. Not just 30 points, but the rebounds, the steals, the blocks, one turnover. It was a record-setting night for Cooper Flagg, and Duke advanced to the Elite Eight. It was the other game that gave us the goosebumps, and that was Arkansas, Texas Tech. John Calipari's squad was in control. They were up 16 in the final few minutes. Again, it looked like there was no drama, but now I'm kind of awake because I took my little nap, so I had no problem. And I'm like, I'm up, so we'll see what happens. And Texas Tech goes on a 16-3 run to force overtime. And the overtime was great, and they score the winning basket, like with 6 seconds to go. Arkansas has one more shot. They miss it. And Texas Tech stuns Calipari and the Razorbacks to advance to the Elite Eight and a matchup with number 1 seeded Florida. We finally got that kind of a finish. And it's been few and far between in a year where Cinderella really hasn't shown up. And, I'm going to talk to Trent more about this tomorrow. I think just the new era of college basketball, is that going to eliminate the Cinderellas that we see kind of make a move? And it's going to be cyclical, obviously, year to year. But we didn't see too many of those double-digit seeds. Arkansas was a double-digit seed, a 10 seed, but they're an SEC team, and they're coached by a Hall of Famer, and the slipper didn't fit Arkansas, even if they were a 10 seed. But they came up just short. And so I think the other side of Cinderella's not showing up is you have really great matchups when you don't have the, whatever, UNC Greensboros or the Florida Atlantic Coast or whatever we call ourselves, Florida Gulf Coast. So we're getting great matchups, and we'll have those tonight. 3 Big Ten teams in action tonight. 2 of them face number 1 seeds. They're both 8.5-point underdogs. It would be, I think, a shocker, certainly, if Purdue were to oust number 1 Houston or Michigan were to take out number 1 Auburn, especially in light of the lack of success the Big Ten has had in the tournament in recent years. Michigan State is favored to beat Ole Miss tonight, but another tough SEC team coached by a really good coach in Chris Beard. Izzo historically is really good in the Sweet 16 round. I think he's 5-1 against the spread, 4-2 straight up. So that should be interesting. And then Kentucky, Tennessee, like their third meeting, should be a great game as well. It's a close spread between those two teams. I have Tennessee in the championship game, so I have something to watch tonight, hoping that my Volunteers can oust Kentucky. I love this time of year. And I don't know, for about 10 or 12 years there after college, this was my Vegas weekend, always. Me and my college buddies went to Vegas for Sweet 16. I was there the year.
Golden Nugget action.
We didn't stay at the Golden Nugget. We stayed at Caesars, but we always played at the Golden Nugget because
Genius.
It was like $5 minimums, yep. And I love that casino for craps. But I was there the year of the Leitner Grant Hill Pass, the Duke Kentucky game, one of the most memorable games in NCAA history. And I just remember, what it's like being in a sports book when something crazy happens. It was just electric when Leitner hit that shot. That is what most of the people around us wanted to have happen, didn't believe could happen. And I still have goosebumps thinking about that day in Vegas back in the early 90s. So, I love this time of year. Really enjoy these games and hope that the Big Ten can stand tall, maybe surprise us tonight with either Purdue or Michigan. It's hard for me to root for Purdue, being an Indiana guy like Dan, but I'd love to see the Big Ten stand up and make a surprise tonight. We'll see if that happens. I should have, again, checked our calendar. Are we covering any of these games? Do we have any action tonight?
So a lot of them will be on the plus. Tonight, there will be NCAA basketball action after the Wolves, mostly after the Wolves. So barring any winter sports time, the rest of the time will be NCAA.
So those two late games will likely be
most likely
available on the Fan tonight. Yep. Following Wolves basketball, Wolves Suns tonight, Target Center, 7 o'clock. Let's chat about it with a good friend, Britt Robson, who does a great job chronicling the Wolves at minpost.com. He joins us next on the Fan.
Join the Power Trip Zach Halverson next Monday at Wild Bill's in Woodbury for our final regular season Bud Light Wild watch party. Be there at 6 p.m. to watch your Wild in action and to sign up for your chance to qualify for first round playoff tickets this year. Full details now, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
.340 on a Friday afternoon. Barreiro on vacation for a week or so. Dave Sinykin sitting in this afternoon. Brett Blakemore running the show as usual, and very happy to be joined for this segment for one of my favorite Wolves guests. That would be Britt Robson, who has covered the Wolves forever, most recently now for the minpost.com. And Britt kind enough to join us now. Britt, do you remember your way to Target Center? It's been a while since the Wolves have played.
Yeah, it's been a week. But yeah, no, I'm excited. There's some crucial games now. There's 9 left, and they're in a bunch, and they could finish as low as 8th or as high as 5th. So it's going to be some meaningful basketball coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And your writing of late has had kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde tone. You were rather negative, and why wouldn't you be after the losses at home last week? But your most recent article was more of the glass half full variety as you look ahead to the state they're in, where they are in the standings, who their potential foes might be, and the way some of the players have been playing of late. So for those that have read you forever and don't always see the half full side of you, what has you a bit more positive as we get to the final week and a half of this regular season?
Well, first of all, perspective. I think what happens is that there's nothing more glorious than coming out of nowhere, winning 56 games, having the best defense in the NBA, and knocking off two playoff series. For the only other time that happened was 20 years ago. You expect a repeat, and the repeat has certainly not happened in this regular season. They've definitely given me and many other people reason to criticize them, but we also have to look at what still remains, what's still in front of them, and who they have. And when you do that, you see that while the Wolves have certainly underachieved, especially against bad teams, shades of what they did 2 years ago, they still have Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Julius Randle, and Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels. And a decent bench, the emergence of Jalen Clark. And so, they're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. And before we even get to the playoffs, I just want to run down the last 9 games of the season. Tonight they play Phoenix. They've beaten Phoenix all 3 times they played this season. Sunday they play Detroit, another home game, and Detroit is going to most likely be missing Cade Cunningham, who is their alpha star. Wednesday they go to Denver, and they've beaten Denver all 3 meetings this year. The 3rd, they play Brooklyn. Brooklyn is tanking. The 5th, they play Philadelphia. Philadelphia is tanking. The 8th, they play Milwaukee. Milwaukee doesn't have Dame Lillard at the moment. The 10th, they play Memphis. Memphis just fired Coach Taylor Jenkins in a kind of a stunning move this late in the season. They fired him today. Then they come home and finish out with Brooklyn and Utah, 2 other teams that are deep in the lottery and wanting to stay that way. So this isn't to say the Wolves can't drop 2 or 3 of those games, or maybe more. They are about equal with teams over 500 as they are with teams under 500. But it is to say if they screw their heads on right and they play the way they played during their recent 8-game winning streak, which prompted a lot of people, myself included, to regard them as having settled their issues. If they get back to that status, then they could have a tidy little winning streak. They could be out of the play-in, and they could be up against a team that they have done fairly well with in the regular season. Even if it's OKC or Houston, they split those series, or if it's Denver, they've thus far swept that series. So all I'm saying is, if you want to slit your wrists, you might want to wait and see whether there's a need to.
Yeah, we won't go that far, but there's reason for skepticism because, as you said, they have struggled against teams that have no interest in playing basketball and still have to stop the Wolves from sometimes coming up short. What I enjoyed about your article also was just paying close attention to how well Mike Conley has played of late, how Jaden McDaniels has emerged in kind of a different role, and what that might mean for this team as they've integrated Randall back and so forth. What maybe has surprised you most about what either of those 2 guys have brought to the table the last month or 2 of the season?
Are we talking Conley and Jaden?
Yes.
For Mike Conley, I mean, the guy is in his 18th season, and in the previous 17 seasons, his job was to commandeer a half-court offense. He was a floor general. He was a point guard. And this season, in large part due to the emergence of Anthony Edwards and the arrival of Julius Randle, both of them being players who often play best when they have the ball, or at the very least are ball-centric oriented, Conley kind of got shunted. And in addition to that, he had a chronic wrist injury over the off season that flared up in the preseason, and he went into camp, and in the first, say, half month of the season, in tough shape, and then he was having to adjust to the idea that he wasn't on the ball all the time. And what I've seen from Mike Conley, Ultimate Pro, is he's figured it out. His usage is a career low. His free throws at a career low, his shot attempts right down there. His assists are the lowest they've been since he went in a trade from Memphis to Utah, and also had to adjust in a similar manner, although he eventually, again, became the reigning point guard there. But the point is now Mike Conley is doing all the things that Mike Conley does well, and he's also doing it in a manner that doesn't get in the way of what they want to do with the other guys. He's hit 60% of his three-pointers in the 10 games in March, 21 for 35. Wow. Even more revealing is he's 11 for 19 from two-point range, which is one of the ways the wrist was really bothering him before. In January and February, he had an assist-to-turnover ratio of 6.5 to 1, 130 assists versus 20 turnovers, and it's still very high right now. He's hitting 91.1% of his free throws. He still has that pick and roll with Rudy Gobert that Chris Finch has in his back pocket, and in a half-court orientation in the playoffs, it might be something to pull out. And it's easy to think, because of the first month or two he had in this season and the fact that he still is not on ball the way he was, that Mike Conley is less of a factor. And he is less of a factor than he was before, but that doesn't mean he can't be a stealth ace, or at least, jack in the hole. And so I think that you want a guy who is rested relative to usually in his career, right, is on the next to last year of his contract, which odds are is going to be the next to last year of his career, having never won a ring. So this guy is hungry. He knows how to play. His strengths fit playoff basketball. The only negative he really has is his defense has slipped a little bit, and large wings go down and post him up too much. But most of that happened when Rudy Gobert was hurt, and as long as you have Gobert on the floor with him and keep those guys more or less linked in the rotation, he'll be fine on defense. When it comes to McDaniels, it used to be in the playoffs that one of the things that Wolves opponents would do would stick their really good scorer but poor defender on Jaden, or stick a guy who they just wanted to have lurk the way they have Rudy Gobert lurk against Denver and Jokic on Jaden. In other words, use the guarding, quote-unquote, of Jaden McDaniels as an excuse to repurpose the guy elsewhere. Jaden's emergence on offense has changed that. He's a lot more aggressive in going to the rim. He's not just a catch-and-shoot three-pointer, which was never going to be his good role anyway, because he's no more than a 33-34% shooter. But now what he's doing, he's cutting to the basket. He's dishing when he has the ball and he's cutting. He's been a lot more aggressive in transition. And when they're not guarding him and he's not getting the ball, he's using his length to rebound a lot more on both the offensive and defensive glass. And every now and then, when he's still required to be a wing stopper, he does that extremely well. The difference now being that the Wolves have Jalen Clark, who can also guard up to power forwards. They had Jalen Clark on Zion Williamson fairly effectively, incredibly, the last time they played. And so it is an interesting situation now where you have Jaden McDaniels being much more of a versatile player at both ends of the court. He can be a rim-protecting defender rather than a wing-stopping defender. And on offense, he can be somebody who handles the ball and is a playmaker, hockey assist, or just generally moving the chess pieces around by being a fairly effective player off the ball. So that's a change from any other time the Wolves have been in the playoffs, and that's another reason to be optimistic about them in the postseason.
Yeah, it's fun just to see his confidence growing. You can just see it when he's playing offense. We're talking with Britt Robson. You can read his stuff at MinPost. KFAN.com. You also pointed to, we can never forget, playoff Ant is always something to be excited about. Now, the last time we saw Ant on Monday, his hand was wrapped in a towel. It looked like his thumb was bothering him. Do you have any idea if that's going to hamper him at all tonight or something to be concerned about? And remind all of us what playoff Ant is all about.
I don't know. It's always been described as a laceration, but it must have been a pretty mean laceration because he had a pretty heavy bandage on it when he played. He tried to favor going with his left hand on shots, which is one of the reasons he was going to the rim as much as he was. It clearly affected him on his right-handed three-point attempts. He was 1 for 11, I believe. Of course, he was 1 for 11 against that same team, Indiana, before the thumb laceration. So maybe Indiana's just his kryptonite from deep. I don't know how well it's healed right now. I expect that given the fact that it's been 3 full days without any game action, that at the very least he'll come out with less of a Band-Aid on, and I would imagine, unless it's become infected, that it will be less meaningful in terms of an encroachment on his game. As to playoff Ant, all I can tell you is that if you read the difference between Anthony Edwards in the regular season and Anthony Edwards in the playoffs, and obviously the sample size is like 11 times more regular season games than playoff games. But Anthony Edwards in the playoffs is better in every single statistic than he is in the regular season. He has a higher points per game and a higher accuracy from 2 points, higher accuracy from 3 points, higher accuracy from free throws, more assists per game, more blocks per game, more steals per game. The only thing he doesn't have more per game is turnovers. He has fewer turnovers. So Anthony Edwards, when the lights come on, and one of the things that we all can legitimately criticize Ant for on occasions is dropping out sometimes, especially getting back in transition defense or matching up well with his guy, watching off-ball peripheral movement, cuts around him on defense, and then on offense, becoming a little bit too tunnel vision conscious and settling for shots that he otherwise shouldn't be settling for. These are the kinds of things that when high stakes are involved and you put a challenge in front of Anthony Edwards, it cures almost all of those ills. And so we're looking forward to it. The idea that Ant will once again be under that spotlight and will now, compared to previous seasons, have a pretty dynamic three-point shot that he has done in volume this season to high effect to further space out the floor is another reason to be optimistic about this team in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, where Ant has not been fantastic has been in the closing moments of tight games. We all know the well-documented statistics for this team in quote-unquote clutch time this season. It's been a real problem. And as you look ahead to the playoffs where the games figure to be tighter, it's a legit concern that this team has not figured out how to close out opponents, whether it's offensively or defensively. Now, we've heard they've practiced hard this week. They had a chance to maybe work on some of that, but that has to be concern number one in a best of 7, assuming the Wolves get to that point, isn't it? That they have to figure out how to play more effectively when it comes down to a final possession or two?
I would narrow it simply down to Anthony Edwards has to play intelligent basketball. I don't think Chris Finch is calling for fadeaway jumpers in front of the bench with 2 guys on him in the waning seconds.
No.
What is happening sometimes is Ant goes rogue, and a lot of it may have to do with the fact that he's being promoted as like the face of the franchise. He's done a lot of time next to LeBron and Steph. But if he really wants, if the narrative is playing in international competition and learning how to win with winners is the narrative, and it's a feel-good narrative, then what we have to see is that LeBron James hits the open man more often than he shoots when the game is on the line. That Steph Curry gets off the ball and cuts and uses his gravity to take defenders with him, then gets picks and gets the ball back in a more advantageous situation. How many times have we seen this from Golden State? State. That's what Ant has to learn about winning basketball. You'll get the ball back because you're the best scorer on the team, but Steph Curry gives it up and repositions himself. LeBron gives it up because there's a shooter in a better position. Ant has not been doing that as much, even as he had done it previously in previous seasons for the Wolves. And, maybe it's Cat being gone, another kind of dead-eye shooter. But there are players on this roster, including Dante DiVincenzo, Mike Conley, I just mentioned. There's Naz Reid can shoot three-pointers, although he's yet to prove himself for the clutch. There are weapons the Wolves have, and Anthony Edwards needs to figure out if guys are on him and the game is on the line, the winning play sometimes is to give it up. The person he gives it up to most, actually, is the guy he's probably closest to on the team, Jaden McDaniels. And we just got through saying Jaden McDaniels open in the corner is not necessarily your best look. What Ant needs to do is figure out, know your personnel, make the right play, make the intelligent play. You don't need to be a hero. You don't need to hit a home run. If a double will do, then that's what you need to do, and that's usually a pass to a teammate in a better position to shoot.
Let's close with this. 9 games or so left in the season. Obviously, a lot can happen. We all hope they can rise out of the play-in. That remains to be seen. As we sit here today, what in your mind would be the best opening playoff opponent for the Wolves to face, and what's the team you would last like to see them face in the first round?
I think it's entirely plausible, not probable, but plausible, that they take this easy schedule I just mentioned and get up to the 6th seed, get past both Golden State and the Clippers, and that the team most likely to be waiting for them at the 3rd seed would be the Denver Nuggets. Mm-hmm. They currently have a 3-game winning streak in this regular season against Denver, and they beat them in a Game 7 last year in the playoffs. They have always played Denver tough the last 2 or 3 years. Even without Cat being Don Jokic and having Rudy Lurk, they have been able to beat Denver fairly handily in 2 of the 3 meetings this year, and have frustrated Jokic to some extent and have prevented Jokic from going off in terms of being a distributor assist-wise. So I would say, pending, of course, Monday night's game, which Denver, I think it'll be very important for Denver to reverse this kind of momentum and get at least one win against the Wolves this season. But I do think that right now looks like a very enticing matchup simply because a lot of this is about confidence, and I think the Wolves have become an extremely confident team against the Nuggets. In terms of teams you wouldn't want, well, that's obvious, of course. They make it into the 8th seed. The worst-case scenario, of course, is they lose 2 games in the play-in and they're gone. But the worst-case scenario is the 8th seed, where the guaranteed 1 seed is the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Wolves have beaten them twice this year, but I think Lou Dort gives Oklahoma City the ability to guard Ant one-on-one for a while and then add a double team. Dort is probably the most physical defender that can remain and stay with Ant that there is in the NBA. So I think that takes away at least a lot of your effectiveness of your ace in the hole. And then, of course, the Wolves and SGA has always been a problem. He's been able to solve what they do. And then you've got Hartenstein, you've got, that is an extremely deep team that currently has the best record in the NBA. And so I guess logic as well as analysis would tell you that you don't want to face them at home in a 1-8 playoff series. Makes
sense. Enjoy the game tonight. Always a delight to chat. Wolves with you. Keep up the great work at minpost.com. Look forward to chatting with you a bit later in the season, Britt. Thanks, man.
Sounds good.
Britt Robson. Read his stuff, as I said, at minpost.com. Wolves and Suns, you'll hear it right here on the home for Wolves basketball, 100.3 FM The Fan. 7 o'clock, they'll tip off shortly after 7 on The Fan. We'll switch gears to hockey when we come back. Pat Micheletti on the inglorious end to the Gophers hockey season. That is next on The Fan.